you get to meet Van Morrison, which is really cool. Or I got to meet with him. You said that he read your book and then you guys spoke about that. Can you just talk more on that experience? What did he think, and what were the new thoughts and conclusions you had after talking with him, and what was that all about?
Oh yeah, that was really nice because I was living in Coventry at the time, which was it's about 2 hours from London, and for personal reasons, I wanted to go into a real a spiritual retreat for a few months, and so the idea was that I didn't want to be bothered by anybody, and I had nothing against anybody. It was like I wanted to have a time to completely to myself for meditation. I wanted to do something with myself particularly. So I was meant to be in a spiritual retreat where nobody knew where I was. Even my friends wouldn't know where I was. And the phone rang one day and I picked it up, and it was somebody who'd read my book. And I thought, oh, how do they even find me? Well, I found out later. And we talked about my book for about half an hour, and he was telling me how he really appreciated it, and we went through it, and he had questions like you, and we had about a half-hour discussion about it at least, maybe more. And we came to the end of that, and we were kind of saying cheerio, goodbye. And just before putting the phone down, I realized I don't even know who it is. So I said, oh, by the way, who am I speaking to? I can't really imitate a Northern Ireland accent, but he said, Van Morrison. And I said the most ridiculous thing. I said, oh, not the Van Morrison, as if there's Van Morrison. And he said, yeah. So that opened up a whole, we started talking again, and he was living in London at the time. And I was soon to move to London. So I moved out. So he found me, and he found me by, he'd been to lectures of Elizabeth Prophet, who gave that talk on music. And he'd got to know her secretary, and it was a bit naughty of the secretary, but I don't mind. He got my current address off her and telephone number. That's how he found me. But I moved down to London a while after that, and we arranged to meet up. I went round to his house, and we got to know each other. And we tried a number of projects together. There was the idea of me doing an interview like this with him, but it was complicated. It would have been in the USA. We never got around to doing that. I did do a book-length interview with him in 2 parts, because it was about 3.5 hours, and we didn't release it at the time. What else? There were various things we did, and sometimes we just met socially. Believe it or not, it was quite amazing in a city the size of London that we twice bumped into each other by accident. You know, I went into a cafeteria one day, a very large one, and when I turned around, there was only one person in there, and it was him. So we kept meeting like that. Yeah, that was funny. It was a New Age fair, and there were lots of Van stories. People like to make fun of him, and you know, there's all these Van stories, and I heard one there which I'm not going to repeat because he wouldn't appreciate it. But yeah, we got to know each other and meet socially sometimes, and then he will know the details more than me, but one day, either by telephone or face to face, he told me he'd been given the opportunity to do a 1-hour TV special on Northern Ireland TV, because Northern Ireland is a part of the UK, It's part of not Britain, it's a part of the United Kingdom. We consist of England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. That's where Belfast is the capital, where he comes from. So I think it was BBC Northern Ireland, but I can't remember for sure, but it was a TV channel, and they gave him an hour, and it was going to be something like in 10 weeks, as I recall. And he simply told me about it, and he said, should we do something about the power of music? I said, yeah, sure. But 10 weeks is not so long, and we didn't meet again for another week, and then that just became a social chat. So then we met a week after. So now we're down to 8 weeks, and it went on like that. And it needed one of us to take control and be businesslike about it. It might be because he was Van Morrison, I was waiting for him to take a lead and say, look, we'll do this, and we'll do that. But when it comes to things which are not musical, because if he's leading a group, he'll do that for sure. But this was something else. It was arranging a 1 hour on TV, and it was going to be live. And we were not getting it together, and it was quite funny looking back, because it was going to be live, and we were down to 6 weeks, and we weren't really getting it together. And then 5 weeks and 4 weeks, and I think we were between 4 and 3 weeks before it was going to happen. I don't even know if he'll remember this, but I was thinking this is going to be a disaster. It's going to be so embarrassing, because we had a vague idea that we would bring the chieftains in because he knew them well. But what they were going to do, we hadn't decided. And the idea was to have some children from the school, but it wasn't really concrete what they would do. And we were down to 3 or 4 weeks. And I think I rang him one morning, and we were talking about it, and we were both thinking the same thing, but we were not saying it, like, let's not do it, you know. And one of us said something like that, and the other one jumped at it. Yeah, let's not do it.
Yeah.
So we had several meetings over that, but didn't really get it together. It needed somebody with a more of an organizational head, really. But there are various things like that. It was nice meeting him and knowing him. And he was there in the early 90s. My mother had her 70th birthday party, and I realized he was part of a music festival just a few miles away, and she'd got into liking his music. So I got in touch and said, could we do something for my mother, you know, something that she wouldn't know about? And she had a wonderful birthday that he arranged that she didn't know where she was going. It was her 70th birthday, and he was playing on her 70th birthday. And she didn't know where she was being driven, but it was all arranged that we would drive up. She couldn't walk very well at the time. So we parked right behind the stage, and she got out, and it turned out they changed the timing of everything. Bob Dylan was playing at the time instead, and Van had already done his gig, so we missed him. So we went looking for him, and we found him in the food tent. But she got to sit down and get to know him, and had a photo taken with him, and so on and so forth. So I really appreciate that he helped with her birthday.
Wow, that's so cool. Very nice. It looks like you got a good friend out of it.
Oh, yes. And we, what we talked about a lot was the power of music. He was really interested in that. At the time in the 1980s, he was even more interested in the effects of fame and how misunderstood it was, and the number of people who were going into music and trying to become rock stars, as he would say, because they were seeking fame. He would say, they have no idea what they're doing. You know, their life will change instantly if they succeed, and you can never go back. It needs to be taught. that if you're going to go that route, be prepared for it. You know, it was really something much on his mind. Probably still is today.
That's some very, very interesting stuff. It'd be really interesting to hear about that. I think personally, it's easy to make a living in music. There's this misconception. People think, "Oh my God, you're a musician. I'm so sorry. I hope you're gonna be okay." You know, people talk like this sometimes. It's hilarious. I don't understand why. It's not hard at all. I think there's a difference between like making a living and becoming world famous. But yeah, why would you even want to do that? A lot of people do go into the music thing for that reason, which is kind of sad. But I think that most people who play music have the bug. It's like you get bit and you just have to do it no matter what. You know, so there's most of the time a foundation of that, which is important and good. But otherwise, if somebody's reaching out for that, I would just say what I said before, which is like, if you're trying to appeal to the masses, what are we saying to the masses? Be a leader. We have to understand that we have a lot of responsibility in herding consciousness with music. And that's what Reggie talks about, the shepherd's crook. He says that the shepherd it was a guitar. They put a string on it and you could play with it sometimes. And they were guitarists. And Apollo plays the guitar, and David is a guitar player in the Bible. They play the lute, which is a guitar, which is a stringed instrument. And oftentimes in pictures of angels, very often they're playing music, and they're very often stringed instruments. So there's something important about that, which then goes back to just physics in general, studying a string, you know, and Pythagoras and sound and all that stuff. It's very interesting. But I just want to say that again, it's like with that topic for any musician out there is, what are we doing? What are you even saying to the people? Why do you want to be in front of people? What are you going to tell them? You know,
Well, Van and I used to talk about that as well. And at the time, he had a problem when he was touring, because he would be wanting to put over something in a meditative, spiritual way, and he would find the band behind him. They were getting louder and louder and louder, and he had to try to. I don't want it that way. That's not what I'm trying to do. Yeah.
It's a challenge finding all the right people. I've personally been on that search since I created Two Cities, One World, our band. And our mission statement is to raise the consciousness of the planet through the power of music. And finding the musicians who are all on board with that is that's always the easiest thing, you know. Everybody having that foundation of and desire, you know. So I can relate to him and that.
It's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing that you're aiming to do, though, mind you.
Thank you. And even in your book, you're saying. I was just reading about it's like the difference between personal statements of I'm just going to say connecting to God. There's different ways, okay? But you say like it's much more powerful with a group of people, you know. They'll all have the same intention and are all doing it together, and the amount of karma and immediacy from the universe is much more powerful with people who all have the same intention. So if we can find that, that's really beautiful.